Hi, everybody, and welcome to Weekend Game Plan with Marcus Hersh. I'm Dan Ullman, along with Daily Racing Form analyst and handicapper Marcus Hersh, and we've got three major graded stakes races to discuss on Saturday. Let's kick things off with the tropical turf at Gulfstream Park. We're going a mile. It's 100 grander. And Marcus, the morning line favorite in this race, the number 8, A Thread of Blue, well, he's simply the most accomplished horse and probably the most talented horse in this race. There are two concerns, though, that I want to ask you about. One, the layoff for Kieran McLaughlin, and two, the presence of other speeds, most notably the number 4, Guidou.
Yeah, the layoff doesn't really concern me. I don't think he didn't have that much time. He was due a break, and he's been on a steady breeze pattern. I doubt that he's lost that much, and I think he'll be fine off the layoff. The reason the speed situation, Dan, doesn't concern me, it's kind of twofold. One, he's drawn outside, and so I think that he can sit right off any other horse that wants to go extremely fast in the lead. I think he'd be happy sitting third. And we saw on this very turf course in the Palm Beach last year, he rated in third behind two horses and then closed the gap on the turn, took the lead, and held on to him by 3/4 of the length. A trip like that wouldn't surprise me. I think that he was forward mainly because he was in longer races, for one thing, and he just was naturally the fastest horse in those races. He doesn't strike me as a particularly headstrong horse. I think he wants to race forward, but I don't think he needs to have the lead going a mile. I don't think he has a great turn of foot for a mile, but he does have a lot of other positive attributes. And I got to say that, I went through pretty carefully, like a lot of these other horses, and I cannot find much in here that has a lot of upside. I just feel like this horse, if he improves at all from 3 to 4, and I kind of suspect that he was running farther than he really wants to, at least 1.5 miles, he might be more of a natural middle distance horse. And I also think that he has a chance to be a better 4-year-old. I don't know what this is what end this might be a means to, but I do think he clearly has the most upside in the race. And I'm hoping he's kind of a softer favorite, doesn't get hammered at the wins, and I don't think he will.
And we'll take a look at his most recent start, the Sands Point Stakes at Belmont, going 1 1/8 miles. He was able to make the lead in here, and he runs a very good second behind a rock-solid Southern California horse named Neptune Storm.
Yeah.
But I think you make a very good point, Marcus, about his win at Gulfstream last year, where he was able to sit off horses. A lot of folks might forget that, remembering what we've seen from A Thread of Blue over the summer in these longer distance races, where he kind of made his reputation as a need-the-lead type. But he has that in his hip pocket, the ability to rate.
Yeah, and that horse he beat in that race, Dan, Casa Creed, he may have been a little bit forgotten, but he wound up being a pretty solid 3-year-old turf horse. He won the Hall of Fame, I believe. And that was not, those early season 3-year-old only turf races, sometimes can be pretty soft. And I'm not saying it was any great race, but I do think it was legitimate. I think he's just going to wind up being better than these horses. I'm not advocating some sort of strong, huge play because I don't love the horse, but I needed 3 races to pick, and after parsing the form as close as I could here and trying to find other horses that I liked at more of a price, I didn't see much that could threaten him. If he takes a step forward, I think he's going to.
Well, the other graded stakes race at Gulfstream on Saturdays for the fillies and mares. Let's take a look at the field for the Marshua's River Stakes. And a couple of horses in this race. They'll renew hostilities. The 4, Sweet By and By, the 5, Andina del Sur. These two horses are very familiar with each other, but I think you could make the argument, it's an easy argument to make just by looking at the inexperience. The 3, Magic Star, might have the most upside of any horse in this race.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's the case. Now, what that's going to translate to, maybe some horses have upside that's never realized, or maybe they just ran as well as they could when we thought that they could do better. But to be fair, this horse's encouraging race was her very first start, and you would think that at some point she can improve on that. You got to think that this is like a pretty soft spot for a grade 3. All due respect to Sweet By and By and Andina del Sur, and to Andina del Sur's credit, after being a constant marginal player in a bunch of stakes races, she broke through and won 2 of her last 3. I'm not sold that she has much more to give than that. I think that we've probably seen about as much as she can do, which is fine. and she ran well at Gulfstream before. She had a better trip last time, I thought, than Sweet By and By did, who was hung out, just lost way too much ground, and maybe wants to go a little bit shorter than a mile and a 16th too in the end. But that's another horse that I just don't see that there's much more there. I suppose you could make the case that this horse Munchkin Money on the outside has got a little step forward, but I mean, she's a 7-year-old with 26 starts, and I was very intrigued with the new face on this scene, Magic Star. Now, do I think she's going to be a fair price? Do you think she's going to be a fair price?
It's an interesting call. With Chad and Irad, you have to think that she's going to take a little bit of money, but I also think that Andina Del Sur and Sweet By and By are going to be the two favorites. I would reverse the morning line odds between Magic Star and Munchkin Money. I think 3-1, 7-2 is where Magic Star is going to land at post time.
Agree. I think that's probably about right. That's how I conceived of it as well. I know, and maybe there's nothing there, but I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with her debut race. I think it was quite notable. She was obviously well regarded first out 3-2 in a 12-horse field at Saratoga, and she made that look like a very fair price. I going back and watching the replay a couple times, I remember generally what she did, but very weird kind of horse. She's out of Meadow Breeze, a Meadow Lake mare, which is just not grass at all. And she has kind of an interesting way of going in the grass. But when she she's got a little bit of awkwardness to the way she changes leads and accelerates. But when she accelerates and lifts up and picks up, I mean, that was remarkable. I can't believe how much ground she gained and how easily she seemed to do it once she was let loose at the quarter pole. What went wrong the next time out at Belmont? I mean, maybe she was just fraudulent. Maybe that's who she is and she's not that good. But she was a bit headstrong early in that race. There was a little give to the ground. She was in between horses. I mean, you could make a number of excuses here and there, like marginal things. But what was encouraging to me was she got back on a work pattern pretty quickly thereafter. Brown sent her down to Florida, and she's breezed steadily since. I mean, if one guy should know like how horses fit in the filly and mare graded stakes turf division, it's Chad Brown, who has multitudes of horses for these kind of races. If he ends up, I mean, I suppose they could have just been taking a look and we'll end up scratching and waiting for an allowance race. But if he is going to run her in this spot, I have to think that her training combined with what she showed first out is telling him that she's ready to take the move forward that I think her debut looks like she could take. And that could easily put her into contention in this group.
Let's switch out to Southern California for the La Cañada Stakes. This is the feature race at Santa Anita on Saturday. We'll take a look at the field right now. We're going a mile and a 16th for older fillies and mares. 5-2 on the morning line for the 7, Spice Perfection. And listen, Spice Perfection is the class of this race and arguably the most talented horse in this race. I'm not sure a mile and a 16th is really what Spice Perfection wants. And I know she won the Go for Juan last time out going a one-turn mile, but they handed that race to her on a silver platter, didn't they?
Yeah, I'll say the La Cañada, that used to be part of that 4-year-old series, didn't it? Out there for 4-year-old fillies, and I mean, this used to be a fairly strong winter race. I mean, we've fallen on some hard times in American racing, Dan. I'm afraid this is a lackluster group. I think for the most part. I mean, if you put these horses in like a 50 claiming race at a major venue, I don't think it would look any different. I mean, there is not much to this group that I can see. I mean, there are a couple of sharp horses like Queen Bee to You, but I mean, this is a 6-year-old with 32 starts, barn change last year, but there's just like no upside to any of these horses. And then, so you combine that with this Spice Perfection thing. Okay, I mean, maybe the idea will be is her class is just too much. Even if she doesn't love going 2 turns, she'll just win because she's better. But I think she'll be shorter than 5-2, maybe considerably shorter than 5-2. And I noticed Horologist last summer. I mean, a lot of people did, because she got really good. She's a New Jersey bred, but she jumped out of state-bred restricted competition to beat Jaywalk. And while Jaywalk had her more downs than ups in 2019, I think she ran one of her better races in the Monmouth Oaks, and this horse beat her. And then I thought ran an encouraging race behind Street Band and Guarana, who are two. I mean, those are two of the top whatever X number of few horses from the 3-year-old filly division of 2019. I thought that was a good race as well. And then she was barn changed, threw her right into the Raven Run, cutting back to one turn, which she didn't seem to enjoy at all. Total throughout race to me. Baltus got her back out to California, got her on a regular work pattern. And this is another horse where she's out of a Stephen got even mare gemologist, Tisno sire. A lot of things in her pedigree suggest she's a later developing sort. I know she can go 2 turns, and I think she's going to be ready to at least get back to her like Monmouth Oaks kind of form. And I think that is sufficient to probably beat Spice Perfection.
To recap Marcus's 3 selections in this week's weekend game plan, in the tropical turf, he goes with the number 8, A Thread of Blue. In the Marshua's River, it's the number 3, Magic Star. And in the La Cañada at Santa Anita, it's the number 6, Horologist. Best of luck with your wagers.